Qualcast Nation, listen, I got a friend, a colleague, innovator, researcher, clinician, all things with Dr. Kumanan Wilson. So welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Quadro.
Absolutely. So you wrote an article in the Globe and Mail that really caught my eye in terms of trying to innovate in our country, especially in a time of need like we are in now. What drove you to put thought to paper on that topic?
Frustration. If I told you that a country was responsible for producing the people who were critical to the development of the GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic, generative AI, mRNA, and that same country was projected to be last in GDP growth in the OECD and productivity growth in the OECD over the next 20 to 30 years, it would be really hard to believe that. But we're living in that country. And as I started looking through it's inspiring and sad at the same time. The list of amazing Canadians and amazing contributions is endless. So eBay, Uber, Canadian companies. People don't like to admit it, but Elon Musk is Canadian, and that's SpaceX and Tesla. I'm from New Brunswick. Metro Goldwyn Mayer, Louis B. Mayer, who basically created Hollywood, from St. John, New Brunswick. OpenAI, co-founded by a Canadian CTO, was a Canadian. Even I found out that the light bulb had Canadian origins. The telephone had Canadian origins. The smartphone had Canadian origins. Like, it just goes on and on. We are the fourth most successful immigrant group in the US for creating billion-dollar companies. We're the most educated country in the world by some standards. Yet we're struggling with economic growth, and it just doesn't make any sense. I'm a general internist. We like to diagnose problems, and there's obviously a diagnostic problem here.
Wow. And when you put it together that way, when you illustrate how much innovation, creation, great minds have come through this country and unfortunately have had to leave to generate the impact that they've had, it's scary. So like why are they leaving? Like what is it about Canada that makes us less appealing?
Well, I'll be blunt. I think the problem isn't Canadians, it's Canada. And there's something that's not working here. I think there are few reasons. We are next to a behemoth, a country that is, the world leader in innovation and has endless amounts of capital. But we now know that relationship is fundamentally changed. So, we have to think differently. Our culture is more about peace and good government, and that is less about taking risks and embracing challenges. And I think that permeates our culture at many levels of government. And the heavy government focus of the country, I think that their focus is on risk aversion, and and choosing the Canadian company is a risky thing to do. Choosing the startup is a risky thing to do. At least it was perceived as such. And so we've defaulted. The default is to go with the large international companies, which puts our own company at a disadvantage. The old adage was nobody gets fired for hiring IBM, but as we look back on it, we that was probably the riskiest decision we could make. We basically put our healthcare system in the hands of American companies, and we now have a country to the south of us that says they will use whatever means necessary to pressure us to join them. So the riskiest, the decision that seemed the least riskiest may have actually ended up being the riskiest.
I mean, when you put it that way, it seems obvious, but obviously this hasn't been the approach. And I still am baffled that when we have that level of innovation and the minds like this, yes, there's a powerhouse down south, the bigger economy, but what is it specifically as well? Like, are, like you've grown a company. You've grown a Can Immunize. To better phrase it, like what has that process been like for you?
Yeah, as you mentioned at the outset, I've had many jobs. I run a research institute. I have a physician and academic and the company, and the hardest is the company. When you're starting the company, there's huge amounts of uncertainty, and then as you're growing it, and as the market becomes available, you immediately encounter competition from the largest companies in the world. Like we were, the Salesforces, the IBMs, and such, and trying to navigate and survive in that environment is very difficult, particularly at the time then when the default was to go with the large international company. Now, I think the landscape has changed. I think there truly is an opportunity for Canada. I think there's been a wake up call. I think we had a habit of the easiest thing for us to do is to sell our oil at 80 cents of the dollar to the US and buy their tech at 120 on the dollar. And that's obviously didn't work. It put us in this position. And I'm hopeful that, we have a new election, new government. We had an election, new government, that this new attitude will continue. I honestly believe that we have the best people in the world. When I list those accomplishments, I don't think any other country can match it per capita. There's something special about Canadians. There's something special about this country. I think we can turn it around fast, and we can be a global leader in multiple industries. But unfortunately, I hear the opposite. I hear innovators, hearing your stories and other people's stories. These people who are really passionate, the people we need to succeed and make this happen, who have these great spirits in them and this enthusiasm, just seeing their souls get crushed. And that's just got to end. Like, if I'm going to commit myself to something in the remainder of my career is to prevent that from happening. Like, we need this. This is what's going to protect us from aggressive attitudes south of the border is people with the creators, the innovators, the people who are, not doing the mainstream jobs and thinking outside the box. But unfortunately, they've been a casualty up until now.
So I'm hearing a little bit of optimism in you, Kumanan, like that you feel like there might be a new shift, a new era where we can build off this circumstance.
Yeah, as terrible as what's happened with our relationship with our closest friends has been, I think it's been a necessary wake up call, and I think there'll be substantial opportunities. We're seeing it at the hospital level, as you know. The Buy Ontario, Buy Canada provisions is in the Liberal mandate as well. I think it's going to open up the playing field for Canadian companies, and we can hopefully nurture and grow those companies. There's $370 billion in spending in healthcare per year. I recognize a lot of that does go to salaries, but there is a substantial portion that goes to procurement. We can grow a substantial number of Canadian businesses by using that procurement power. So, I've worked with Ken Health, and at Briere we work with Ken Health, and we're the lead edge for long-term care scaling. That network focuses on procuring Canadian companies. We're very proud at Briere of supporting Canadian companies. We like to say we supported Canadian companies before it was cool to support Canadian companies, we truly are proud about it, helping these companies grow and scale. It's us, right? It's our country. These are our people. It's their ideas and their inventions.
Absolutely. And just out of curiosity, where do you see the opportunity specifically in health? Is it on the AI side? Is it on tech side? Is there an area that comes to mind in terms of where we could be leveraging?
So I think the area we are best positioned is in health AI. I understand that 1 in every 4 VC dollars in health investments now going to AI. This is going to be a multi-trillion-dollar industry. We have, through the fact that we're one of the few truly public systems, access to data that nobody else would have. And it's diverse data. It's geographically diverse. It's ethnically diverse. It's socioeconomically diverse. So these algorithms need this data to be developed, and we have it in a way other countries simply don't. And in the U.S., the HMO systems are not representative of the U.S. They socioeconomically, ours is. So we have the ability to build algorithms that can improve our healthcare system, but also can be then commercialized and made available to other countries. And also this data can then be used. I think Amal Verma and Fahad Razak had an op-ed in the Globe about using this data to support clinical trials, pragmatic trials, and make our country a destination for industries to set up to allow for faster procurement. And we saw how Israel had first access to mRNA vaccines by demonstrating their ability to do rapid evaluations. Well, that should be Canada. Like we have amazing data and amazing scientists, amazing clinical trialists, as you know. Plus, we invented it. Brianton invented generative AI. And we have the top AI researchers. So everything is set up there, but regulatory barriers are getting in the way. And are they real or not? I'm not sure. Like privacy concerns. I think but what I've also written about is, if we don't use our data, the Americans are using our data. They have the ability to use our data. All our data is on U.S. servers, and they can then access this through obscure provisions, which we know, President Trump likes to use to achieve his policy agenda. They can use the Patriot Act or whatever to get our data, and we know he's obsessed with AI. So, we have a choice. We can use our data and support Canadian companies and support a domestic economy, or the U.S. will use our data for that purpose.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on the AI side. And this is what's exciting to me. We know our healthcare system's not in a good shape, and we have many solutions at our disposal if we're up and ready to support them. Like I really think, especially the enrichment of the data, Canadian data, and how diverse it is, and how we can well represent our true patient population, that needs to be leveraged. And yesterday, and I'm slowly becoming more accustomed to your experience in terms of the what's the word, like regulations and the I'm not really good with my words, red tape to try and progress some of these initiatives. But I'm hoping as a nation we see the light, that we need to have some urgency, which I'm not sensing yet. I don't sense that urgency. I hear a lot of talk, but I don't see a lot of action.
Yeah, I don't think we have a choice on this. As terrible as it may be that the U.S. takes our data and builds algorithms on it, that's actually a better case scenario than the option of us importing algorithms based on U.S. populations and using them in the Canadian healthcare system that are not representative and may not have the outcomes we desire. So we'd be making erroneous healthcare decisions. So obviously the best case scenario is we Canadians use the Canadian healthcare data to build the algorithm. But I'd rather someone use our data than no one. And if we're using inappropriately designed algorithms in our healthcare system. So I don't really think there's an option. We have to move forward on this. It's a phenomenal opportunity, and we can and we can lead on this. So this is, I think it's exciting. And again, we got the Nobel Prize for this, Jeffrey Hinton. So we have the top scientists. So
I'm curious, from your perspective, how do we bring the next generation? How do we foster this in the next generation of clinicians and docs and so forth? Because I know a lot of people want to create change. I know our youth. I see it in their eyes. I see their drive to want to make a difference. but I don't know if we give them the tools, or we don't, or provide the environment for them to be part of the puzzle. So how do you see this going?
So I'll be having a forthcoming paper in CMAJ discussing this, the idea of developing sort of clinician innovator, clinician entrepreneur streams in our academic health systems. We have, as you know, clinician scientist streams, which are very effective and results in Canada producing, world leading research. And we have excellent clinician educator programs, we even have clinician administrator programs. But it's hard to fit the entrepreneur innovator in this. So, you know, you get more points in our systems for writing a paper about inventing something than actually inventing something. That's the incentive system. So, it would be great if we could design these programs where we can find metrics for evaluating innovators, entrepreneurs that are distinct from the academic scientific metrics. It can go hand in hand, though it can be separate. And then we have to help them navigate the challenges. So conflict of interest is one. That's always given the reason for not doing it. Or, we always find it weird that when you do invent something that's really great, you can sell it everywhere but your own hospital because that's believed to be a conflict of interest. Like, so that your own hospital is at a disadvantage because of these conflict of interest rules. Well, if everybody else is buying it, obviously there's a demand for it. There's also the conflict of interest when you participate in research, and we don't want to preclude these innovators from doing scientific research. In fact, that's the strength, bringing people together who can innovate and do science. And we can have third-party data stewards who can be in charge of the final decision on the analysis of the data and the publication. So that there are ways around that. This does not need to be a hard stop. We need to help people figure out IP, and then Ontario's created intellectual property in Ontario. People don't realize that as soon as you even put an abstract out there, you lose the potential to patent the solution. So this is something people need to be aware of sooner rather than later. But I think the real issue is the business knowledge, and that's, for me, that was the hardest transition, just all of the complexities and understanding the environment, business environment. And that's where partnered innovation, where we could bring the scientists together with with people with business knowledge, and you'll have the appropriate complement, and I think that's what we need. I think we need people with excellent business knowledge and excellent science to build companies together. I saw the movie Blackberry, and it was quite a great movie, and just seeing Michael Lazaridis with his tech nerds, and then Jim Vasili with his business coming together, and the clash in cultures, but it worked, at least for a while. I think if we can simulate that in healthcare, that would be great.
I love it. I love it. And I think this would be a very popular concept amongst our youth and in our upstarts in the currently navigating the system. Just as similar to you, but I mean, obviously you've been way more successful and more advanced on the entrepreneurial side. It's way more complex than I would have considered. Yeah, navigating through this has been such an eye opener, and so I think being able to facilitate that, making sure the kids are aware of the barriers, and just creating an environment where we can let them shine. Especially, this is a time where, as I alluded to, we need creative solutions right now, and I don't see that slowing down. So, yeah, this to me, this would be beautiful.
And at the same time, as hard as it is, and I don't want to downplay the challenges. If you succeed, it's rewarding in a different way. As a physician, you can touch one person's life in an incredible way. As an academic, you can create ideas that you believe have an impact, and we hope that they do. But as an entrepreneur, you're creating a solution that people are using. So, launching the Nova Scotia's booking system and end-to-end vaccine system during the pandemic was absolutely miserable. In the middle of a pandemic, scaling our company, and it crashed right away. That was extremely stressful. My CTO at the time, now the CEO, was up, basically slept 2 hours a night for the whole week trying to get it fixed. But then it got fixed, and then it was the best solution in the country, 3 or 4 reports, and people were incredibly grateful for it. And just to be able to help the country in that time of need with a solution, uh, and just that's really was rewarding. And we hope we can continue to do that with the company, and I hope I can help other scientists, and we're trying to do at Briere and more broadly is to help them navigate this journey as well.
Yeah, and I like how you mentioned that, Kuman. Like when you come up with these solutions, that scale, like lives being impacted at scale, and and that's powerful. And we obviously all got into this game to support people and to help people, but that level to me, I gotta say, is very appealing.
And I think one of the challenges, you to go back to your earlier point, why is this not happening? I think there had this is changing. There had been a culture in healthcare that anything private is bad, but the reality is for these things to be sustainable, you need to have a recurring revenue model, and that's what being an entrepreneur means: creating a recurring revenue model and the capacity for profit. Within you can do these through incubators and innovation studios and such within academic centers. Then we had that with the M Health Lab. But what we did find is after a while, like you get the initial grant, but you don't get the sustainability funds. And then that actually creates enormous risk because these products need to be updated, they need to be maintained, and there's no business model there. So you have to figure out a way to get those solutions then out into entities that can then find the recurring revenue to ensure sustainability.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like there's several stages in there that need to be supported. And yeah, as you mentioned earlier, procurement processes. I do think it is ironic the point you make about you could use everywhere could use your product, but you can't use it in your own house, even though people are likely benefiting. But yeah, I think there's an energy now in terms of moving forward with innovation and removing barriers, and I hope with op-eds like just like the one you wrote, with us having more conversations about this. I know you're rubbing shoulders with the right people to try and really create some energy and momentum. And I gotta say, it's really encouraging to see what you're putting together.
Yeah, my colleague Dante Mora, who's been a leader in this, created Can Health, said this can be a nation building exercise for us. This is something that can bring all of Canada together, and this like our our moon landing, our where we devote our efforts in a common goal, and it's something that brings us together, which is something we know we need as a country, and we've been brought together, and I think this would be an amazing thing for us to rally around.
I love it. I love it. I'm feeling inspired, my friend. Kumanan, I gotta say, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. We are going to be connecting more often. I could feel this already just because when, what's the, I give my metaphors, birds of a feather flock in and around themselves. But, but, congratulations on all the achievements, all the great work you do. It really is awesome seeing this.
Great, and thanks for having me on, Wajo. Appreciate your energy as well.